Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Brazos Stories. Today we're going to be touring BCS Chicken, so let's head on over and get a look. I know we're out in Somerville. Are we Somerville, Bryan College Station locals? Did you choose to stay in the Brazos Valley or you were born here?
So I was born west of San Antonio, but I came to A&M and in '93,
Okay.
and then graduated and stayed and worked, and then went back to graduate school and stayed. And so I've been here in Bryan or College Station since '93. After being married for several
17.
years,
No,
we what was it in
it
2019?
was when Steven was 5.
We sold the house in College Station
Okay.
and moved out here onto land out between Somerville and Snook. People think you have to own land to be a farmer, and that's one of the big hurdles for a lot of people is they want to do a certain thing, but they don't have any land, and so they think that stops them. Well, I didn't have any land here
Right.
locally, so I asked a friend who had a cattle ranch if I could raise chickens on his property.
Okay.
And that's how I started, with one small chicken tractor out on his property out on Highway 21. But from the agricultural perspective, yeah, we didn't start with any land.
I
So
gotcha. That's so interesting. So, did you kind of barter with him to be able to use his land? Like you gave him a certain amount of eggs every month, or
well, I did certain things for him when he needed help, and
okay,
we took very good care of things. At least I think we did. He let us be there for quite a while. He's just very generous, very great supporter of ours. He actually said, he told us yes and let me start with the chickens, but he told me at the very beginning that he thought I was crazy, that it would never really work or amount to anything. And he told me years later that that's what he had said originally. And so even though
really,
we're very small scale, I consider everything that we've done with the farm to be a success. And
absolutely.
so yeah, that was funny that he said, yeah, I didn't think this would ever going to work.
So, what made you want to get into chickens?
So I grew up farming
Mhm.
conventionally, once again, very small scale. Dad had cattle, the family had cattle, and then we also grew acreage of corn, usually, maybe a
Okay,
few other things depending on the seasons. And I came to A&M. I got 2 agricultural degrees.
okay,
My genetics and entomology are my degrees, and those are both in the College of Agriculture. And I'm overall very maybe skeptical is the wrong word, but that's
mhm,
maybe the easiest way to summarize it, over systems, the things that sustain us.
mhm.
So in this specifically, like food, thinking about food, where does our food come from? The vegetables, where do they come from? How far do they travel? What was sprayed on them? What was
Absolutely,
what was the condition of the people who picked them? All the whole system.
yeah,
Who makes the money? And growing up farming, I know that even though my father was a firefighter, so he didn't farm full time,
okay,
but even farming in the scale that we were at, I knew that, and I understood that the farmer a lot of times gets the short end of the stick when it comes to farming.
right,
So there's a lot of classic studies you can look up, a lot of information on stuff like this, that the amount of money in a loaf of bread that the consumer pays for a loaf of bread, how many pennies of that actually go to the farmer who
yeah,
raises the wheat?
mhm,
Just a minuscule amount. Even though the loaf of bread is worth a certain amount, the farmer gets a very tiny portion of that. And in my view, the farmer should get the bulk of that.
definitely,
I don't blame the system. It's just how things have developed. I actually blame, it's ironic, I'm very pro farmer, but at the same time, they're the ones to blame in all of this, because they have something that's valuable, and they're giving their value away to middlemen
right,
in the process. And so I'm very much an advocate for capturing all of that value and retaining it, as the farmer, as
mhm,
much as I can. Now
mhm,
I know that there's things you can't do. It does mean you have to learn other skills. So farmers might be very good at planting corn. Maybe they're not so good at marketing, or maybe they're not so good at doing a web page, or maybe
right,
they're not so good at selling a retail. But those are skills they have to develop if they want to capture all of their value in the
Yes.
crop they're raising. Anyway, so you can think about that. Like I can sell my corn to a grain mill, and then it can go wherever, and I can get those pennies. And if that's how you want to do things, that's fine.
Mhm.
But if I take my corn, instead grind it and make cornmeal or make cornbread muffins, yes, that change. The logistics are completely different. I'm going to have to learn some new skill sets, but selling muffins is going to bring me far more value for my entire crop than
I
just
see.
selling it all at the very beginning.
So just
Mhm.
being more involved in further down the chain
Correct.
of actions.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Because there are people who are, those things are in demand. People want tortillas, people want cornbread muffins,
Absolutely.
people want chicken broth, people want those downstream value added items. But what I'm doing, if I'm just selling my commodity, wholesale,
Mhm.
then I'm giving away all of that opportunity to somebody else in the chain.
I see.
And I'm glad that the consumers can get what they want, but
Mhm.
I want the farmer to be able to capture as much of that value rather than giving it away to those middlemen.
Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't have the cornbread or the tortillas
Right.
without the farmer. So
Right.
that makes sense
Right.
completely.
And that's not always going to be possible. There are things of scale that have to be considered. Unless you want to own a grain mill and a kitchen and a factory and a corn muffin factory and all that, that's tougher to do. But that's one of the benefits actually of being small scale is it makes it easier to capture all of that value.
I see.
Because I don't have an overwhelming supply that I have to move as fast. So I
Right.
can hold on to the chicken bones for a little while, and then I can make the chicken broth, and I have the space to put the broth. And, I'm not trying to figure out how to move the raw item as fast.
Right.
Anyway, so I can, by staying small, I can capture more of the value than if I expanded a little bit. Now I'd have to. So some of the other folks at the farmers market we've talked about, for example, putting, I've been approached by like restaurants
Mhm.
who want to serve the chicken, or grocery stores, health food stores that want to carry the chicken, but they want to. Of course, I understand the business model. They want to only pay a wholesale price, not a retail price.
Right.
Well, at the current size of our business, we're selling everything. We're selling out retail.
Right.
So I have no incentive. There's no need for me to sell wholesale.
Right.
Because I'm staying small enough where I can capture all of that value. Whereas
Sure.
if we expanded, if I had to, instead of having to move 200 chickens every 6 weeks to 8 weeks, if I had to move 5,000,
And then still
retail,
maybe only get
right, and
the same amount for
that,
way more work.
so that would be harder to do, to move that. And so you have to change, your business model depending on your size.
Right.
Anyway, that's a long way of saying that I think farmers can squeeze more out of the things that they raise, and that might mean staying smaller instead of going larger.
Staying smaller and diversifying themselves.
Correct.
Throughout the
right.
The supply chain, or
that's a good, that's that's a fine way to say it.
Yeah.
So instead of raising more chickens, maybe raise the same amount of chickens, but do more value adding to the chickens that you have.
I see. That makes complete sense.
So people will say, well, how do I raise corn? How do I make more money? Well, I need to plant more corn. Well, there's other ways to make more money than just planting more or growing more or raising more.
Mm-hmm.
You can squeeze more value out of it.
Absolutely.
Than just by expanding.
Okay. Awesome. How did you grow to where you are today from that one small chicken tractor?
Chicken tractor. Started with like 30 to 50 chickens that first batch. Yeah. So I've always grown very slowly. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is I'm not trying to build an empire. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to grow as fast as I can and flip it and sell it to somebody else. I like what I'm doing. Right. And I want to keep doing it. But I also want to be able to manage it. So I've grown very slowly always. I don't want to outgrow my ability to reach the end goals. When it comes to growing, I think as a small producer, you need to make sure that your market is there before your product is there. Right. So you need to make sure you've got that customer demand. So yes, 30 to 50 chickens at the very beginning. I had nobody who wanted chicken. You have to start somewhere. Yeah. And so, but as I grew slowly, I would wait till I would sell out
Mhm.
For example, I only sold at the farmer's market. I've only ever sold at the farmer's market.
Okay.
And so I would wait till I would sell out and people would want more. And I would collect names or emails or something. And I would let them know, well, I'm not butchering again for 3 weeks or for 6 weeks or whatever my schedule was.
Right.
And then I would gauge what the demand had done, if it had gone up or down.
Mm-hmm.
And I would expand slowly. So I went from 30 chickens to 50 chickens to 80 chickens to 120 chickens.
Slow
You
and
know, so
steady.
you just add a little bit every time.
Okay.
The chicken tractors that I use are originally, we've gone a little bit commercial now on one of them, but were a design that I liked, I found online, and then I reverse engineered it and built my own.
Okay.
And so they hold, based on the square footage, it's about 80 square feet, so 8 by 10. They hold between comfortably 40, 50, maybe you can push it a little more than that,
Mm-hmm.
chickens. You know, because we're also trying to keep all of our other values all in line. And I
Right.
don't suddenly want to become inhumane, you know, just to raise more chickens. So that was kind of the unit that I would expand in.
Mhm.
So I had one chicken tractor that would have 50 in it, and or maybe I had 40, and so now I have 50. Well, now I want 60, but now I'm getting to the point where they're a little crowded.
Right.
So I'll build another chicken tractor, and now I'll put 40 again or 30 in each chicken tractor. And so I was able to just take these small little stair steps up as I've expanded. And I got to the point where I had 4 chicken tractors of that size at about 180 to 200 birds total.
Wow.
And now I've actually, I wasn't gaining many efficiencies of scale because each, you know, by the time you move it and you change the waters and you do the food and all the different things, it takes like 20, 30 minutes per chicken tractor. And so by adding another one, I wasn't saving any time.
Right.
I'm not mechanized. Not that I'm opposed to it. We just don't have the infrastructure. So I don't have bunches of tractors and things to move the bigger chicken tractors for me. So if you look at other farms or other places, you'll see that some places have like 20 by 40 chicken tractors. They're basically like huge greenhouses. Well, you need a tractor to be able to move that daily across your pasture.
Right.
And I didn't have any of that infrastructure, especially the way that I started.
Mm-hmm.
So it was everything has to be movable by, you know, one manpower, you know,
Right.
and so moving the chicken tractor. So I was kind of limited, and then but I found another small farm that has a chicken tractor design that's a little bigger, 10 by 12.
Okay.
That is still movable by one person because they have some engineering things in it that I don't understand. Anyway, so they built a better chicken tractor.
Okay.
So I bought one from them just to try out, and that's what I raised my ducks in over this summer.
How fun.
That unit. And so the larger footprint means that I can put more chickens in one tractor.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the time to move and to refill, it's better than having 2 smaller tractors. You save time,
Right.
you know, by having one bigger one. So I'm just trying to figure out how to take what I do and make it more efficient rather than taking everything and expanding it at the same scale.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So what's been your favorite moment so far?
Favorite moments, the disasters, quite honestly. So what I mean by that is you learn. So things like 4 or 5 years ago now, whenever we had the super cold that February.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
You know,
Yeah, that was
when we went from whatever it was down to the low 20s down to like 6 degrees for 3 days. I only lost out of, I think we had 200 chickens. I lost 2 chickens during that whole process.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, but it was a challenge to figure out, okay, this is the environment I've been thrown into. How do I come through it successful? So you have all these challenges and you have to figure out how to, you know, broach those challenges. And like, that's an example where we did one that was very successful.
Yeah.
You know, so you would think like, oh, farming, I wouldn't want to do it because you've got all these things that can happen. Yeah, but you can overcome all of those things.
Definitely.
Then the little things like when we hatch our own eggs, or the heifer, a cow has a calf. You know, those moments are, you know, very rewarding.
I'm sure.
Those are fun. Some of it's humorous. The things the cattle get into, the things the ducks get into, and you think, how did you? What disaster have you created for me today?
Right.
Because they you know, they break out of something or they get stuck somewhere. I had a cow once get its head caught in a dolly. You know, I had a cow in a chicken tractor once. You know, how did you get in there? All those kinds of things are really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's such a refreshing outtake on it, because you know, I'm sure some people would, if they were faced with that challenge, they would immediately stop and
Right.
get angry. And to find it humorous is such a healthy way to
Yeah.
approach really any
It
challenge in
is.
life.
Yeah. Now I will admit I've gotten angry and I will admit I've cried. But you you know, you get certain things happen and no matter how well you've planned for it and how much work you've put into it, you have an epic fail.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you just have to
Mm-hmm.
overcome it.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have a small acreage, and so I picked Dexter's because Dexter is an Irish breed of cattle. It's the smallest of the standard breed, and so that's my bull right there. He's what, 6 or 7 years old, and you can see he only comes up to my shoulder approximately. They're pretty diminutive. They're not a miniature. They are full size. They're just small, about half the size, full grown of like a Angus or what people are more familiar with. But the reason I chose them is because they are smaller. They eat less. You don't need as much land to sustain them. They also are very good they're very hardy. They're very good at taking care of themselves.
Okay.
So I've been told, because they're an Irish breed of cattle, they're a dual breed. They were both meat and milk, and they were also used as oxen. So when you lived in that environment, you had to have an animal that could do everything.
Right.
And so it also had to survive the harshness of their climate. And so in a certain sense, the Dexters in Ireland developed like the Longhorns did here in Texas, that you had a cow that maybe isn't really the best, but it lives, it survives.
Right.
And so that's how it was useful. Well, that's why I chose Dexters, because they're very good at taking care of themselves. We have never had any veterinary problems. We do keep an eye on things, but we haven't had too many big issues. They make very good mothers. They're very protective, and they're small, and that's why we have the Dexters. So this is one of my chicken tractors. I've got 4 of these, right? No, yeah, 4 small ones. It's an 8x10, and I built it myself. Very threadbare, you know, we make do with what we can, and so things are a mess. And this holds, like I said, 50 or so chickens total. This one has a few more in it than usual because I'm waiting. I've got another chicken tractor, the nicer one, the newer one, that's got ducks in it. So I raise ducks over the summer instead of chickens. Chickens, they can't take the Texas heat, but ducks do fine. And when I say Texas heat, I mean like a full-grown meat chicken starts to have heat stress at about 85 degrees, and so that's tough. Wow. The smaller they are, the more heat they can endure.
Okay.
So when I say I don't raise them over the summer, I mean I don't have any adults over the summer. I have started for the fall, so these won't be adults until the middle of September. So it's not as big of a problem because we're over our heat, you know, maximum usually for the year. So I need to move these into the duck to where the ducks are. I need to move the ducks out, and so it's kind of this hopscotch game. But I wanted to show one of the principles in pasture poultry is movement. That's one of the things that birds that are raised in a factory setting in confinement don't get. So these birds were moved yesterday. This tractor was moved yesterday. And you'll see what everything looks like after just one day of the chickens being on it. Excuse me. I know, everybody comes because anything that's spilled is cleaned up by somebody else. So they all know when it's time to move the chicken tractors. I know. And so I can take it and...
Oh, wow.
Move it. So by moving them every day, not only do the chicks themselves get exercise, that improves the meat quality. They don't sit on their own waste for any longer than they have to. And so hygiene is a big deal. They also then have access to the fresh grass and the bugs to hop around and to scratch and to dig. We do make provision if there's bad weather. I'll put down hay. We've got tarps that we can put to protect everybody. And so even though they're outside, we try to still protect them as much as we can from the elements, from the true big disasters. Once again, the property we're on here, the hill, it drains pretty fast. And so standing water has never been an issue. It's just if we have a sudden thunderstorm. And then we'll put the feed back, we'll put the water back, and then tomorrow we'll do it again, ideally.
Right.
Once again, weather permitting. And if you look, you can see, come on, get out of the way. You can see where the tractor has been.
Oh, yeah.
And as you move forward, and so this is one day. So that's the damage that they have done to the grass. I use damage very loosely. The damage they've done in one day, all the manure they've made. Anyway, the next time it rains, all that's going to go down into the ground and it's going to fertilize the grass for the cattle. And so anything, we use no corn, non-soy, non-GMO for all of our feed. And so the chickens will come in here and they'll eat up whatever is left over. Everybody checks it out and then they'll lay eggs. And so those are the eggs that we have also.
Awesome.
And so we do give them their own food. But one of my big deals is, especially when you're running small and they need to be efficient, is to avoid waste.
Right.
And so all of the feed, feed is expensive. The no corn, non-soy, non-GMO feed is not cheap. It's not the cheapest. I don't want to feed the cheapest, but I also don't want to waste any if I don't have to.
Right.
And so by having other animals and creating a cycle, they're able to come in and use what is waste to these chickens and turn it into something that's not waste, like an egg or beef or whatever.
Awesome.
We do the same thing in other parts of the farm. So I will take the peat moss in the brooder boxes so the chicks have a soft bedding. Okay. It's for themselves, for comfort, but it's also for absorbing the manure, the nitrogen waste. You need something that's going to bind it, and because it's unhealthy. Right. That's why we move the chickens every day. Well, in the brooder box, you can't move them. They have to sit for a while. So we use a bedding. So by using peat moss, it's very acidic. And so it absorbs that nitrogen and then doesn't create any ammonia problems in that amount of space. But I take all that peat moss then and we put it in the garden and we compost it. And so we take everything that we take that's a waste product and we recycle it into something else on the farm so that it's useful again. And even things like feed sacks, we'll use them. If they're paper, we'll compost them. If they're plastic or something, we will try to use them to like haul. We get as much value out of them as we can. So There's another small farmer we know. I'll get rabbit manure from her periodically and we'll put them in those bags. And so we try to take everything we can. That's why I joke things look a little threadbare, is because everything is recycled and reused. And when the tarp isn't good enough for the chicken tractor anymore, doesn't keep out the rain, we might use it to cover the feed sacks in the barn, or and so we try to take everything and use it as much as we can.
That's awesome.
And so that's moving a chicken tractor. So these are the ducks that I raised over the summer. They're noisier. So these ducks, it is legal in Texas to do some on-farm harvesting, and so that's what I do with the ducks for the summer. There's no place in Texas you can take ducks to because ducks are kind of a pain to pluck and to clean. But the chickens, after about 8 weeks, when they're 5 to 7 pound adults, I will take them to Hillsboro. There's 3 in Texas. There's 3 farms that have USDA inspected facilities that will process your chickens for you. Some people find it surprising that with lots of you can get beef processed a lot of places in Texas.
Right.
But in Texas, as big as we are, there are only 3 USDA inspected facilities.
Wow.
It is legal in Texas as a small farm. There's a maximum you can do per year. But if I'm going to butcher on a small scale, I can actually do it on the farm.
Oh, okay.
There's a few records that have to be kept and you have to jump through a few hoops. But several years ago, it wasn't legal at all. And Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance, FARFA, Judith, she lives in Cameron. Anyway, it's a lobbying group in Texas that lobbies the legislature for rules, either additions or deletions that benefit small farmers. And so they're the ones that got the cottage food law passed. They're the ones that got raw milk made more available in Texas. They're the ones who got that farm processing exemption for small scale poultry pass through. And so I'm glad that they do what they do
Right.
also. And so
So it makes it harder to pluck a duck versus a chicken.
so any chicken can be eaten. You know, there are no laying hens. They can all be. It's the difference in quality. So the same thing would be like you can eat Angus or you can eat a dairy cow.
Mhm.
You know, but dairy cattle are bred to be milk producers, not to be meat producers. So
Right.
they're the quality of the meat, the tenderness, the marbling is going to be completely different if non-existent on a dairy animal.
Right.
So same thing with the chickens. There's varieties that are bred to lay eggs. There's varieties that are bred for meat, and then there's just backyard chickens.
Right.
The chicken that I raise for meat is the standard American meat chicken.
Okay.
It's white skinned, double breasted, so it's the same chicken you get genetically if you bought it at the grocery store. Those chickens, in part of their development process over the last 50 years, the way that they've been bred is to have fewer feathers that are easier to pluck, you know, to help the manufacturing process, quite
Right.
honestly. Ducks didn't go through that same process. So the duck, in a sense, is much more natural in its original condition. So they have a lot more feathers. They have down. They have pin feathers. Their feathers are stronger. Plus, a duck is waterproof, whereas a chicken is not, or at least not as much.
Right.
And so it makes it harder, more time consuming is what I mean, more tedious to process a duck than it does a chicken.
I see.
Yeah. These are my last two chicken tractors, same as that first one. These just have the amount of chickens in them that they're going to have. So both of these are going to stay, and they're going to go then from the base of the hill. They're going to go all the way up to the hill. And basically by the time I get to the gate on those daily moves, and you can see the trailer, then that'll be the day to load them all and to take them to harvest.
What is next? What's your plans for the future?
So I would love to just be able to get through with all the little projects I've already started. So that would be one. Like we're rebuilding a chicken coop. As far as expanding, I'd like to get some more of the larger chicken tractors because of how easy it's been to use. I'm very happy with how well it's done. I also need to do a little bit catch up on my marketing and trying to, you know, capture a few, because we live in a community that's so dynamic. People are always coming and going, that some of the customers have moved on, and so I need to replace them with other customers.
Right.
As far as other expansions, I'd like to maybe raise some quail and look at quail eggs and just kind of do a little, you know, market research and development, you know, and start out small, just like I did with the chickens for us, and see what it is, what it takes to raise, what are the logistics. And then see if there might be a market for some of those other things.
Awesome.
And then on the bigger picture, I've always thought it was very important for people to have choices. I want choices, and so because of where I grew up, we hunted anyway, and so we've got deer meat and venison and pork, and we raise our own cattle, and so we have choices. But living here in this more urban environment, you just people. It's not that it's a food desert, but that, you know, that the choices seem to be very limited.
Right.
And at the same time, there were all these trends going on in other places where people were going to want more choices.
Right.
And so when Joel Salatin, for example, wrote his books 30, 40 years ago, the first ones, and I read them, I thought, you know, this would do well here. These people want this here too.
Definitely.
And so I'm going to start so that when people realize that they do want it, then I'm already positioned, you know, a little bit of strategy.
Definitely.
Makes sense.
But
I've always wanted people to have those choices. And so if I can help in providing the choices on some of these things, then that's, you know, that's one of the reasons. And so I'm going to continue to do that. So plans for the future is more like a steady course forward, doing what I'm doing. Once again, I'm not planning on having an empire, you know, being a, you know, Bo Pilgrim or Tyson or any of that. I don't want to do that anyway, of course, but I want to be small. It's something good for me. It's good for my family. It's therapeutic to be on the farm and to take care of the animals. For me, it's peaceful and calming. And then at the same time, if I can do that, brings me some comfort and enjoyment and joy. then if a effect of that is that I have a product,
Right.
you know, to give people choices, then that's very rewarding for me.
Definitely. And it gives back to the community. I mean, we're such a close knit group that I'm sure that
Right.
it would be awesome for people to have more of those choices without having to drive to Dallas or Houston. Right. It's right here in our backyard.
And in fact, I've had people come from Houston
Mhm.
to the farmers market here.
Oh, really?
Because they are very on a, you know, maybe their kid can't have this or somebody's allergic to that. And so they have very limited choices where they are.
Right.
And they're willing to go all over. One of the ways that in our modern society that helps is by shipping. You know, you can buy things from anywhere.
Right.
And once again, if that's an option, that's fine. But I don't ship right now. I have no plans on shipping. You know, everything is just here local. Fresh. And you know, I'm in town many of the days of the week anyway, and so even if it's not a farmers market weekend, if somebody has a chicken emergency or whatever and needs something, they can let me know and we can try to see if we can organize some kind of meetup. Otherwise, we're at the farmers market. That's where I've been now for about 10 years. It's been maybe just shy of that. I've been selling at the farmers market in Bryan.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For
thank you, Katie.
Sitting down with us.
Thank you.
Guys, if you're looking for fresh, locally sourced chicken, we have it right here at BCS Chicken. So just give them a call.